Happy draft day, Browns fans, the best day of the year. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Travis Hunter is about to be a Cleveland Brown. We got some great news. We broke Bo Atkinson to Ohio State 2 days ago, so a lot of other sites are catching up, but we already did a show on that 2 days ago. We're going to get into a little bit about what that looks like. Some new visitors coming to Ohio State, and we lose CC Caffey to the portal, so he's out the door. No sweat there. He's about our seventh running back. Really nice kid, though. Wish him well. And also, of course, the NFL draft. Where are some of the key figures? Trey Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, Josh Simmons, potential first round picks tonight. We're going to see how this thing all shakes down. One of the best nights of the year and one of the best sports nights I've seen between hockey, NBA, and everything else. So if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. We appreciate you guys, and we're just so thankful for everything you guys do for the show. The show is on fire. Thanks to you guys. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. And we're going to get into a lot of great stuff is going on around Ohio State football. Nevada, obviously, adding Bo Atkinson is enormous. The more I watch him, the more I love him. 6'6". You can't teach that type of arm length, and his moves are excellent. 7.5 sacks. I mean, his production is light years ahead of the defensive ends that we have in the room. And he's going to push those guys to get better, because I think he's going to end up being one of the starters, and we'll see who the other one is. And he's much bigger than Caden Curry. I imagine the first down ends will be Kenyatta and Bo. But what are your thoughts on that? And again, congrats on having that first, because Buckeye Scoop always has it first, and we appreciate you guys being a part of what we do. What are your thoughts on Bo Atkinson, Nevada?
Well, I mean, if you look at how he compares to like Jack and JT, or recent defensive ends, he had better production as a sophomore at UNC than they did as juniors at Ohio State. He had almost twice as many sacks as they had as sophomores. So, obviously, things don't exactly change, but UNC's not a joke. They play in the ACC. They play real teams. He's a Sam Hubbard type of player, and you liked what Sam Hubbard could bring. That's the kind of defensive end. And again, we talked about this before, that he played almost 30% of his snaps on the inside for UNC. So they'll move him around. They'll move him around on the line. And Matt Patricia likes to do that, especially playing that wide nine. He likes to play with little more mobile guys on the inside. So it'll be really interesting to see how they deploy him. But in my view, he steps in right day one as one of our best four. And that's how good he was. That's how big of an addition it was. Number one portal target for Ohio State in the second portal window, and they got him. So great get for Ohio State. I love seeing the other defensive linemen. Kenyatta Jackson's out there tweeting, let's go. Was so excited about it. I mean, these guys realize good players beget good players, and it just helps, and that's part of the brotherhood. And Bo's really a guy of faith, and the fact that Ohio State had kind of put their faith front and center, last year, and really kind of made that a selling point. Part of the reason why Bo Atkinson, chose Ohio State. So a lot is a fan you can be proud of, and this kid is going to be just terrific for us on the field and off the field, and just a great get.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be a great ad. And defensive ends, D linemen that are, they're smart. They see that you need a rotation. You need guys that can play a lot of different roles. You need guys that can rush the passer. You need guys that can do both. I think that he's a guy that can do both in terms of stopping the run and rushing the passer. But defensive ends is not a position design where guys are designed to play every snap. I mean, Myles Garrett doesn't play every snap for the Browns because you have to stay fresh. I mean, you want to have fresh legs when you're rushing the passer, and having a really good starting, all Big Ten-ish caliber defensive end like Bo Atkinson, I think is going to be a huge help. Again, kudos to Ryan Day getting this one done, and the foundation and the NIL group. I know that they made a really strong offer. So this was one that we wanted. This was my favorite guy in this portal, bar none, just because I love production. As expensive as some of these D tackles are, when I look and see that they started 10 games and had 1 sack and 30 tackles, like, I just don't get as excited as the guy that had 7.5 sacks. Like, 7.5 sacks is, I mean, that's a real, in the world of RPOs and quick game and teams that like to run the ball, like 7.5 is a nice, that's a really nice number. That's a prominent number. And they didn't play, extra playoff games. They didn't play in the ACC championship, so that was a maybe a 12ish game, 13 game-ish type season. So like I said, and he wasn't playing on a great team because I mean they fired their head coach and they cleaned house and brought in Bill Belichick. So I'm excited for this kid. I think that he'll be a great fit. I can't wait to see what he does in scarlet and gray. I think it's gonna be absolutely awesome. Nevada, we're getting into there's a few days left in the window to remain open. I'm not sure if we're going to see any more movement. TC Caffey took off. Wish him well. Again, he's about our 7th best running back. He was a walk-on initially. I'm not sure if he earned a scholarship or not, but when you're down 7, 8 deep in the room, especially at running back, when you have no chance to play outside of maybe special teams, I never begrudge a guy for one who wants to go actually touch the ball and maybe have a chance to play in the NFL. Not sure if TC's that guy. He had a really severe injury last year, but he took off. Got a couple other visitors that are coming into town. Talk a little bit about a defensive tackle and a kicker. We're bringing in a potential second kicker to compete with Jaden Felding.
Yeah, I mean Jackson Corville, kicker. I want to say from Ball State. I think that's right. Bringing him in, and a guy that didn't miss a kick over 40 yards last year. And again, he's in the portal, visiting Ohio State. Will they offer him? Knowing Ryan Day, the way that he kind of operates, I can't imagine him not bringing this kid in. And I think we've talked about how ruthless in a good way he is about upgrading these positions, and nothing gets the best out of a kicker than having another quality kicker on the roster. And certainly in a 16, 17 game season, it protects you against injury. And there's a lot of reasons why you want to have a kicking competition going on. So if they could get him, this would be an underrated, really good get, in my opinion. To have a guy that's kicked was 2 for 2 on kicks over 50 yards. So we know he can kick it from distance. Fielding was clutch for us last year in the playoffs, but obviously had some problems. So, nothing but goodness there. And, as for the defensive line, they've got Troy Pikes coming in from Georgia Southern. He's kind of an enigma because he only started one game for Georgia Southern. So this would be one of those kind of head scratcher ones that somehow Larry Johnson sees something that the rest of us don't see, and that is possible. That does happen. But would I be over the? I was over the moon about getting Bo Atkinson because I know he's good. I was over the moon about getting Max Clare because I know he's good. If we get Troy Pikes, it'll be one of those. Okay, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but is it a moonshot? I mean, not on the day that he commits. We'd have to see that one. I would be skeptical hippo a little bit, but they're bringing him in for a reason. We'll check it out. I'm skeptical that he'll get the offer, that'll be there at Ohio State, but if he does, I'm certainly willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. These guys do it for a living. Their very livelihood depends on it. But it would be a little bit of a head scratcher because he doesn't have 1/1,000,000th of the production of a player like Bo Atkinson does. And it would be legit weird. So definitely something we're going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like we've really kind of gotten away from the projects. Because again, every time we take a kid, I evaluate the film with you guys. I mean, I put it on the telestrator and watch it, and I try to figure out if it's not, obviously I don't have to do that with Caleb Downs. I don't have to do that with, Julian saying these guys that are 5-star can't miss guys. But, like when it was a Victor Cutler, like I downloaded Victor Cutler's tape from Louisiana Monroe or Lafayette. He was from Louisiana Monroe or Louisiana Lafayette. He was from one of those. And like we're watching his tape and I was just like, I mean, I guess. I mean, he wasn't dominating. He wasn't physically imposing. I didn't think he was terribly strong. But we took him and he was playing tackle down there and we took him to play interior and I didn't love it. Like when you take a guy that isn't that strong, you put him on the interior, he's going to get bushwhacked pretty good. And that's kind of where I'm at. If a kid can only start one game at Georgia Southern, I just don't know what he could do here outside of maybe, fill up a jersey and maybe whatever. I don't know. Like, I mean, that's why, I get we need the bodies, but you take a kid like that and I mean, it's going to be, well, how much does he cost? I mean, some of these tackles, I feel like we're getting them for decently cheap. You've got a couple tackles that are potentially visiting, and they're from Sam Houston and they're from West Virginia, so um, they're not going to start next year in all likelihood. But they're guys that maybe we felt like we missed on, and maybe we feel like, well, I know that they've said multiple times that we're short by 2 bodies in the O line room, and that's tough in a long season when you're short a couple guys because maybe they didn't get enough walk-ons or they didn't get enough whatever, and you go out and offer a kid a scholarship. Like, it's just something you got to end up doing, because again, it's not, you have to look at the holistic entity that is the football program, where not only do you have to have the product that's on the field on Saturday, which is your starters and your Josh Simmonses and your Seth McLaughlin's, but you've got to have young guys and walk-ons that are offensive linemen for scout team for practice. So when you start losing some guys and you get thin and you don't replace them, maybe they lost a couple walk-ons. I know they lost George Fitzpatrick and they lost Zen Mikulski. It gets real hairy. I mean, because those guys get hurt too. Those guys get tired. I mean, a lot of times there's guys that are whatever. So you have to have enough guys to practice. And that's something that I know Ryan Day has talked a lot about, how hard it's going to be with a 105 roster cap, because it's not the NFL. Like in the NFL, if someone gets hurt, you can go get a guy off the street, off waivers, a guy who's a free agent. I got signed with the 49ers in the middle of the season one year. So they had an injury. They needed a guy. They called me. I flew out, worked out, was ready to go. But that's part of the deal. And I think that they're really worried about the numbers on the offensive line. But I think that our top end is really, really good. I think Ethan Onyanwa, I thought he really looked good in the spring game. I think he's going to have a huge year. He could end up being a first-round pick for us next year. And we paid him like first-round pick. So kudos to, again, Ryan Day for plugging it. We lose a first-round pick in Josh Simmons. We plug in another one in a kid that I think's got a lot of upside. So, yeah, well, Nevada, it is draft night for the first round. How big of an NFL draft guy are you? Because I love watching the NFL draft. I just think that the way college football with the three years of you have to be a junior before you can declare. It really builds up the NFL draft in a way that's much different from the NBA or the NHL. How big of an NFL draft guy are you?
Well, I love the NFL draft just because I'm such a college football head that I know the players, and that's what makes it harder about the NHL draft or frankly the NBA draft. So many international players and you don't know who they are. You've never heard of them. In the NFL draft, you're not having some guy taken from like Tasmania that none of us have ever heard from or something. And that happens occasionally, but these are generally college players. A lot of them Division One, that we're familiar with, and that's familiarity. And then you've got your favorite teams. I'm a Packers fan and a Browns fan, so I like following them and seeing who they're picking. And then obviously you've got the Ohio State thing, and then I've thrown on top of that betting. So I have all sorts of prop bets on where players are taken and when they're taken. So I've just got I've got multiple rooting interests in the night. So yeah, the next 3 days I'm definitely gonna be glued to the TV watching the draft. One of my favorite nights, and coming off a national championship. Keeping in mind that Ohio State in my lifetime has only won national championships in '68 when I was 6 years old, so I don't remember that one. 2002, 2014, and then this year, um, having an NFL draft after national championship is it's like a celebration of that team. And normally the draft, there's a part of me that makes me really sad when players leave because it's, most of 99% of the seasons end in quote unquote disappointment because you didn't win the ultimate prize. Guys didn't accomplish everything that they could have. And now they're leaving to go on to the NFL, and it's kind of sad. But this group, going out the way they did, winning the 12-team playoff the way that they did, it's just nothing but good thoughts for all of them. And I'm so excited to see, where they go and where I can root for them in the next chapter. And I don't have even a tinge of sadness about this group, which is unusual for me because normally I'm pretty melancholy on draft night. But tonight I'm just super excited to see where everybody ends up.
Yeah, it's real interesting because there's a lot of props that are out. There's a lot of Abdul Carter's up to minus 2,000 that he's going to be the Giants pick at 3, which seems like a foregone conclusion. What are some of the interesting props that you have? Because I know that you mentioned one about a running back. Trey Henderson is minus 160 to get drafted in the first round. In my heart of hearts, I just feel like Trey Henderson needs to be a first round pick. In my absolute dreams, if the Browns took him at the top of the second round, that'd be the greatest thing of all time. I don't think nobody's smart enough to do that. But if you had a Travis Hunter and then Trey Henderson at the top of the second round, that'd be incredible. But I just don't think he gets out of the first round with how good he is. What are some of the interesting props that you have for the draft tonight?
Well, the ones with Ohio State players, the two prop bets that I have is I have Trey Henderson to go to. Actually, the prop bet is that the Chiefs choose a running back in the first round, and when I made the prop, it actually said Trey Henderson, but I guess it just says running back. I don't know how that works, but that's plus 850. So I'm getting 8.5 to 1 that the Chiefs choose Trey Henderson in the first, which again late first round pick. The Chiefs running backs is Kareem Hunt, who's 10,000 years old, and Pacheco, who's just a guy. You and I've talked many times. I mean, if Trey Henderson goes to the Chiefs, he's the early favorite to win Rookie of the Year, because he's going to be used. He'll catch 50 passes and rush for over 1,000 yards, and he'll do it all for the Chiefs. So that would be a great pick, and that would be a very Chiefs-like pick. But I've got an 8.5 to 1 shot on that, and then I've got a kind of a chalky minus 300 bet on a Mecca to go before pick 30. So if Emeka goes before pick 30, I win that bet. If Trey goes to Kansas City, then I definitely win that bet. And then I've just got a bunch of other bets about where Austin Genty goes, where Mason Graham goes, and I may sprinkle some other stuff in there. But that's what I got on the two Buckeyes, because those are the two Buckeyes that I expect to go in the first round. Then you've got the Josh Simmons thing. Could he slip in there? Could he go to the Cardinals? What about Donnie Jackson? I mean, there's a lot of intrigue with the Buckeyes because I've seen mock drafts they've had 5 different Buckeyes mocked to the first round. So we could have a big night tonight, or we could have a no night tonight. We could get shut out, or it could be somewhere in between. So we'll just all have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I want to give a quick birthday shout out to Steven, aka Lunatic Fringe. I appreciate you, my dude. Thanks for being on here every night. Yeah, I think that a lot of these props are really interesting because the first 2 picks are pretty much locked in. I really think the first 4 picks are locked in because I feel like everyone's saying that New England's going to take the left tackle, Will Campbell. But yeah, I like Donnie potentially being a first rounder is going to be something to watch. Does he go at 25 to the Texans to help protect CJ? Does I can't see Josh Simmons not being a first round pick. I mean, the left tackle with that kind of ability, and he's already moving really well. Like he's already running around, and he looks like he's in tremendous shape. So I just and Emeka, like I don't know how Emeka's not a top 10 pick, honestly, with how good our receivers have been. And we talked earlier, and like mentally, for those of you that are like watching this, like where would you rank Emeka among Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jameson Williams? And again, those guys went all like what 8, 9, 10. You said Nevada earlier today. Personally, I'd take Garrett at the top, and then I'd probably take Emeka over Olave. Honestly, I think Emeka's really good. I think he's bust proof. Like I don't think there's any way in the universe that Emeka Ibuka is going to be any type of bust, because I think his character is too strong. I think his work ethic. I think that he's just so locked in on football that he's going to be absolutely incredible when he gets to the league. And then I take JMO last just because of the character stuff. But I think you look at Mecca. That's why I'm shocked he's not like being mocked into the top 15 or top 10, or I don't know. Like I said, I think that there's just no way that he could ever bust out. But I mean, and this is the beautiful thing about the draft. This is like when we get reports about practice, about what's going on at practice. Like we'll talk to a ton of different people. They'll have all different opinions on players and coaches and everything else. And it's like Tet McMillan, the kid from Arizona. I watched the thing. Todd McShay, who I think does a really good job, said he had him as the 50th best player in the draft, and there's mock drafts that have him going in the top 15. So like, where's the spread at? So I think that Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and there's nothing that's more obvious than the NFL draft, where you've got these. Like I would take Josh Simmons in the top 10, maybe top 15. I think that GMs are kind of chicken when a guy tears his patellar because that is a serious injury. But I just think that he's young. He looks really healthy. I think he's going to be a star in the league. And I see a lot of these teams that don't have left tackles that are going to pass on him, and they're going to be ruining the day. And again, that's where the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs could end up with Josh Simmons or Trey Henderson, and that's why they're the Chiefs, because they hit these home runs on these guys that slide down the draft and slide kind of right into their arms. Because if you give Pat Mahomes Trey Henderson, then he's back on that Super Bowl trajectory after getting smashed by the Eagles, because he doesn't have a running game and he doesn't have a guy that can blitz pick up the way Trey can. Makes all the sense in the world. And Isaiah Pacheco is just so mid. He's so average. Kareem Hunt's old. But yeah, I'm excited for these guys. Like this is gonna be a fun couple days. It's gonna be stressful and miserable for some of these guys too, even though I know no one can imagine it'd be miserable for guys like Jack Sawyer and JT. But it is. I mean, these guys want to know where they're gonna go, and they're gonna see guys that aren't as good as them get drafted in front of them, and they'll all have chips on their shoulders by the time they get to rookie minicamp in a week. Nevada, we have a super chat. Any other thoughts before we dig into some of these?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, obviously today is all about the first round. The second and third round are going to be crazy, and then obviously the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh is a race to see how many Buckeyes are drafted. Will the Buckeyes break the record for the most players ever drafted by a team? I think they will. You and I are betting money that they will.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's just a lot of history that comes along with this great team. The team that we thought was probably the best in school history, in my opinion, just because what they come. No other team had ever played, four top 10 opponents in a row and beat them all by double digits. Never been done before, and to finish this highly ranked, to finish number one in the nation in defense after running that gauntlet and doing all the things that they did, just a tremendous group. And so it would be what a tribute to them if they're able to break the record with the number of draft picks. And these aren't going to be the Michigan, five guys in the seventh round type of thing. This is, I think most of our guys are all going to go in probably the first 6 rounds, and that's really again a tribute to the job that Ryan Day has done, recruiting, and the job that the assistant coaches did in terms of developing, because this is an insanely talented group, and we're going to be rooting for these guys in the NFL for a long time to come, because we're going to just have guys all over the league, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. All right. RJ, sorry, the Pink Floyd piano cover artist. Make sure you guys go follow his YouTube page. He's got excellent content. Another brick in the wall is always my favorite, so always make sure that I mention that. Excited about Bo. I am as well. Do you think that Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick would have had conversations about him? What types of things would they have discussed? Well, I would imagine that Matt Patricia would at least text Bill Belichick or Mike Lombardi, who's also there. And again, those guys are all tight. They have all worked together. They all know each other. I'm sure it would be touchy just because the kid literally left Carolina. And that's tough when you're rebuilding a program to lose, one of your best players on defense. But, if he's not going to stay with you, then you might as well help him, guide him to, Matt Patricia, who I'm sure, Bill Belichick's not really friendly with anybody, but I mean, he's probably moderately friendly with the guy that he was on staff with for 20 years. And I'm sure Matt Patricia got good intel from the 4 months that they were together in Chapel Hill. But I think, yeah, that's I'm sure that's a question someone will ask Matt Patricia. I'm just gonna say yes, because obviously the diligence would be super easy to do if it was someone that you knew and trusted was over at the other program, and the kid ends up coming here. So I think I would say yes. I mean, at least reach out, especially with Mike Lombardi, who's the GM there. He's like their Pantone. He's worked in the front office of the Browns, Raiders. He's been all over the place. I'm sure that they talked, and I would imagine, what's the work ethic like? What's his how quickly did he get the playbook? How is he with his teammates? Like, as much as you can get. Now, you're probably not going to get a ton from Bill Belichick just because he doesn't need to do that for you. But I would imagine if it's like, hey, do we want him to go to Georgia or want him to come to you? Like, probably have him go to you, help a friend out. I think that's the correct way to do it. But what are your thoughts, Nevada? RJ says he's excited about Bo, and do you think that Matt Patricia and Belichick would have had conversations about him? What type of things do you think they would have discussed? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's got certainly a passing knowledge of him. He didn't coach him all that long, but I'm sure to your point, once a kid decides to leave, while you don't want to lose him, you'd rather he go someplace with somebody you're familiar with than go to someplace with people you're not familiar with. And, Matt and Belichick and Lombardi are all close. So I'm sure there were conversations that went on between them. As you mentioned, I'm sure they're not thrilled to lose one of their best, if not their best defensive player. But, hey, if he's got to go somewhere, have him go to Ohio State, that's going to be a good situation. And Matt Patricia's there, who's your buddy. That's the next best scenario to keep him in the UNC. So I'm sure those conversations happen.
Yeah, I think that you'd do the professional courtesy, and again, if it was because I just imagine at some point there will be a kid that leaves Ohio State that North Carolina potentially could be looking at. So would you want kind of the reverse? Like, yeah, I mean, I'd call somebody, and I think that happens a lot. Again, if you're a coach and you're trying to network and you're trying to grow your circle, I mean, I would try to give honest evaluations. I mean, that's something Ryan Day gets glowing praise from NFL types because he doesn't lie about these kids. He doesn't BS these kids. He when they ask about what is with this kid, like what makes him tick, Ryan's honest. Now he's not gonna trash any kid, but he'll give a nice firm description of what the kid's all about. He's a great teammate. He's last guy to leave the building at night. He's a guy that works tirelessly, works really hard. Um, I think that that's something that when you're in coaching, if you can give intel and share intel on players, it's worth doing. Because again, if can help prevent and say, hey, this guy ain't all it, then that's the issue. I mean, again, we dealt with that, like with Malik Zaire, who's a quarterback who went to, I think, Kettering Alter somewhere in Dayton, and he was getting major offers. He ended up going to Notre Dame, and I remember, like, we had one of our coaches on staff call his coach, and he'd known this coach for a long time, and say, hey, are we really missing anything here if we don't take this kid? Because again, when you're in Ohio and you miss on a quarterback that ends up going to Notre Dame, who's an hour away from your campus, like, Urban was paranoid about, do we need to take this kid? Do we need to take him? And his own coach said that he wasn't missing anything. Like we weren't missing anything. So that's the kind of intel you can get from a coach who's, those coaches, I mean, they want to be honest, but it's just something where, I mean, the kid never ended up doing anything anyways. And we ended up being fine, which is great. Because that's all you want to do is you want to try to minimize your mistakes when you're in talent evaluation. And things can always go wrong. Kids can get hurt. Kids can, get sidetracked, whatever. But you want your accuracy to be as high as possible. And I think that I would bet a decent amount that these guys probably talked and he got some intel. And again, it's a lot easier for me to offer a kid, a sizable NIL deal like we did for Bo. If you know what makes the kid tick, and this is a kid that's a self-starter who's tough. He's not JJ Watt. Again, he's not, but a guy with 6'6", man, tall, long arms, those are tough for guards to go against in pass rush because they outreach him, so it's just like in fighting, you watch boxing or UFC or whatever, like that reach is really critical. In pass rushing, it's huge. So I want to put him over some short armed guards and see how they do against him in pass rush, because I think that he'll dominate. I think that'll be something that'll be fun to see how they utilize him. Nevada, do you have anything else to add to that? Because again, I can't imagine, in this modern world, unless you hate the person, that you're not going to reach out and get a little bit of intel, just as like a coach to a coach, because it is still kind of a community, and I know they don't all like each other, but like we're not going to call Michigan or Penn State and ask them about their players, but someone like Carolina who's not even on the schedule, like, wouldn't you think there'd be conversations there?
Well, for sure, and like you said, it's a two-way street. There can be players that we can send their way, and you never. It's like doing it. We talked about this many times, but doing a favor. Like I'm from Las Vegas, and Vegas is the favor capital of the world. And so when somebody called me and asked me for a favor, and I do it for them, you just kind of drop, put it in your little memory bank, and someday you can cash that one in when you need a favor. And I think it's the same way with players. You're looking for recommendations, you're looking for whatever. Uh, you're giving them freely because at some point in time you're going to be at the other end of the phone and calling and asking for something, and you expect that person to answer as candidly and as accurately as you did with them. So I think, yeah, I'm very familiar with that kind of transactional type of thing in business, and in the coaching world. That's very, very prevalent for sure.
Well, yeah, and in coaching, I think it's as prevalent as any profession there is because guys are always looking for jobs, and you're also always looking for assistants. Like Ryan Day and these guys. Like, is this guy good? Is he not good? Um, and it reminds me of when Tom Herman went down and clinicked with Alabama with Kirby Smart, and it it was a deal where we beat him in the Sugar Bowl and knocked him out of the 14 playoff, and all of a sudden Kirby Smart wants to know what did we know, what was our game plan, how can we get better versus ourselves. And Tom Herman kind of went through, well, we knew we couldn't run it inside versus you guys are too good, so we ran on the edges. And he basically clinicked on him on what we saw. And this is when he'd obviously taken the Houston jobs. He was no longer at Ohio State. And I don't mind a coach doing that because we didn't have them on the schedule for the next couple of years. So if a coach wants to go down there and clinic, like, I think that's kind of a common courtesy. And there are times where coaches like exchange their notes with each other after a game. Like, I mean, hey, this is what we had on you guys. Like, I know we used to do that with like Michigan State because of Mark D'Antonio and Trussell and Jim Bowman. And I know Minnesota when Luke Trussell was there, when he or one of the Trussells was there working. They would give us notes on what they saw, what tips, like if we had any tells in our offense, like they'd go through that with us. Because again, you want to try to fix that stuff, and it's good to have some allies in the profession, even if you have to go against them in the Big Ten. It doesn't hurt to have like a set of eyes that kind of breaks stuff down. So that's just how this stuff kind of works when you're dealing with these coaches, because um, it's like you talk about in Vegas, like you never know when you're gonna need a favor, but for these coaches, it's like you never know when you're gonna need a job, and if you stiff arm someone on, they ask you about a kid, or hey, is this kid is he a good kid, and you just don't answer, don't respond. Like, these coaches have a long memory. So I mean, I think that when you try to do diligence on a kid, and hey, is this kid worth paying, is he a good kid, is he does he have any issues, I think it makes a lot of sense to have that communication. And honestly, I would bet that the portal has opened up the lines of communication between coaches even more than it had, because you have to discuss each other's players now. Because when these guys hit the portal, there's always going to be, Ohio State's going to lose a bunch of guys, and teams will be calling, hey, is he any good? And then you'll want the inverse when someone loses a really good player and he wants to come here. So it'll be very interesting. All right, Nevada. I think we can wrap this thing up as we get into the draft. The draft is kicking off in about 15 minutes. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, just very exciting 3 days here. Rooting for the Buckeyes to set some records, and first day, like I said, Emeka underpicked 30, and trade to the Chiefs, and Nevadabuck is very, very happy tonight. But yeah, so who do you, gun to your head right now? Who's the first Buckeye chosen?
I mean, I just, the value of Josh Simmons is just so crazy to me at this point. I mean, he's a left tackle who's got more ability than any left tackle in the draft. And it's like, if he doesn't have that injury, he's a lock top 10 pick, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Josh. I mean, it's hard not to say Mecca, but I just think the left tackle thing is just so. I mean, you can find receivers, and I think Emeka could be a Pro Bowl level receiver, but I mean, guys that move like Josh Simmons and how good he looked working out. I don't know. It's for me. It's between Mecca and Josh. Because Emeka, the thing with Emeka is he's just so clean. I mean, he's the all-time receptions leader. He's got 205 receptions in his career. Like, that's insane production. And he produced when we had, all of these, monsters. I mean, we had Marvin Harrison and JJ, and we had all these guys, started off his career with obviously Garrett Wilson and Olave, and he's the freshman, and he's just been so productive. That's why I don't know why he's not a top 10 pick. I mean, it's like I look at some of these guys, and we'll look back in 3 years and say that they took some tackle from Missouri over him or whatever. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know how he's not one of the 5 best players in the entire draft, honestly, because he's just so clean. Like, when you have someone that's no character flaws, runs great routes. Could he be a little faster? Sure, but I'd take all of that. I mean, there's speed demons that stink, and then there's a guy like Emeka who's going to be 15-year NFL guy, and he'll end up being like Isaac Bruce. I mean, he reminds me of Isaac Bruce. I played with Isaac Bruce in San Francisco, and they're quiet, super religious, but great leaders, tough. That's what he reminds me of, and I think that he's got that kind of upside. Because he's just so good. But Josh Simmons is a left tackle. I mean, he's a pure left tackle. They can stay in front of guys, and like when I talk to Josh, it's like his game is so impressive because he really knows football. You can tell by how he plays it on film that he really, really understands the game. He understands how to mess with people. He's got a million different techniques he uses to pass protect. Like, I love his tape. I don't know. I'm going to say Josh Simmons, but I mean, I love Emeka so much that it's hard. We did get another super chat during my bloviating. Thanks for the 5, Maurice Clarinet. Any news on the Weiss notice of NOI? Premier Drum said it had been delivered to Michigan. Wondering when we'll see the EG on the dashboard. Nevada, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's an open question of when they're going to register the new notice of allegations against Michigan. It's hard to keep them all straight. Obviously, the science, I shouldn't say science, the advanced scouting one, we should be getting a date here on that anytime now. And that's the thing that obviously, I mean, Michigan's dying to death by 10,000 cuts right now because every day it's another lawsuit. Michigan's defense against this is they're claiming some sort of shield law that they're not responsible for computer action or something like that. I didn't really understand it, but the fact that Michigan hasn't taken any steps to notify people that they were hacked is really a big part of these filings, and it just seems unfathomable that they haven't done that. And clearly, it's a legal strategy. I think by not notifying them, they're saying that they don't have any responsibility for it, or they're trying to distance themselves from it. But the fact that it was done on university grounds, on a university device by a university employee, seemingly would put them in the crosshairs for liability. But yeah, no, the Weiss stuff just gets worse and worse for them every single day, and the advanced scouting thing. They're gonna get the hammer on that, and they know it. They're starting to panic a little bit right now, but we should have a date on that shortly.
Yeah, I think that the hammer coming is going to be a magnificent day for us. I can't wait for it. So, all right, Nevada, we'll wrap this thing up as we head off into the night for the NFL draft. Any final thoughts?
No, just rooting for my Trey Henderson. Feels like one of my children is going off the NFL draft, so really rooting for him to end up in a good spot. And I'm going to go with a Mecca as my first pick, even though I think Josh should. But I'm going to say 3 Buckeyes in the first round: Josh Simmons, a Mecca, Trey Henderson. That'll be my final answer. But hopefully Donnie slips in there and makes it 4.
Yeah, and put your final answers in the chat. I want to hear if you guys think that we're going to have 2 or 3 and who they're going to be. Because I always love reading what you guys' thoughts are. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for all that you guys do. Great night of sports ahead, great hockey games along with this draft. But I just appreciate all you guys for being a part of what we are doing. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.